Hi and welcome to NLP Upskill Your Life. It's absolutely brilliant being back again. I know it's been a while since we've done a podcast, but it's great being back again. And so, Fintan, great to see you.
Yeah, you too, Mark.
Yeah, how have you been keeping since the last one? God, it's a couple of months now since we've done one.
Certainly is. Yeah, it's been a busy summer and then autumn.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes, it's been a while, yeah, but it's been very busy time, yeah. But it's been good, very productive, and that
definitely.
got a lot done and that. So
Yeah,
happy out, you know.
yeah. And I'm sure, like, it's want to welcome all our listeners and our viewers on YouTube as well. Back to the podcast again.
Very good. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And I say it's good to be back in the saddle, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. And today we're going to talk around weight management, which is something that's in the course that both of us done, and I think it's a good one to concentrate on today.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's something that's always in demand, I suppose.
Yeah,
There's always people looking to manage their weight, no matter what. You might be just looking to lose a couple of pounds, maybe looking to put on some weight.
yeah,
Depending, you might be bulking up. You might, whatever the position, the scenario, or the position you're in. There's something in this for everyone.
yeah, yeah. Because I think the way you kind of say manage your weight is better than lose it, because you know yourself the old thing where if you lose something, you're going to look for it again. And
Yeah, that's true enough. Yeah, try and find it again. Yeah. But
yeah, yeah,
also, it's not just about people who want to lose weight as well,
yeah,
because as you say, it is all about managing your weight.
yeah.
Uh, After all, there are some people who feel that they need to lose weight, where in fact they don't need to lose weight at all. You
Mhm.
know, so yeah, I think managing your weight is a much better way to describe what it is that we do.
Definitely, definitely, yeah. And we're going to introduce a new thing today as well, where we're going to try bring these two words into the podcast if we can. So as well as that, we're going to use them in Oscuelga, our native language here.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, yeah.
And right, well, as far as I can remember, the words were Auroni,
Arani,
which
yeah,
means singer,
yeah,
and the second word was Luch, which means lake.
like yeah. And and when you think of that word lake, look, what comes to mind, Finton?
Right. Well, it's interesting actually because, of course, obviously there's the word lakes, you know, which like means mad, which is
Yeah.
what we are here, you know,
Mm.
we're lakes. But there's also, of course, look also means, even though it's spelled differently, can also mean mouse, you know.
Yeah,
So
that's right. Yeah, look, yeah,
that sprang to mind as well. And of course, then there's a lock, which is, you have an inland lake, but you also have a lock, which is like sort of like a harbor, that sort of thing, you know, like Loch Swilly and all
yeah,
of that
yeah,
sort of thing, you know.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I suppose it's somewhere, a harbor is somewhere safe for a ship to pull in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a lake is a vast expanse of water, somewhere
Mm.
you can go where most of the time I would spend on the lakes. There's a Loch Ree is not far from us here, which is the second biggest lake in Ireland
Lovely, yeah.
after Loch Ness. And we'd often go kayaking on it, you know.
Lovely, yeah.
So yeah, that's what that I would associate with a loch. Um, is going kayaking on it, yeah. Um, just out there relaxing, nice summer's evening, you
Mm.
know, just out there chilling, taking your time, going off, following the flow of the river, and then strolling on back in just before sunset, you know.
Yeah. No, I love that because lake and water is kind of relaxing, isn't it? It's kind of a relaxing thing for people. You know,
It's
if you're going like out into the lake, for some people it can be very soothing and relaxing, to take it out of madness of what can be going on in your life, you know?
very true, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. And the other one then is singer, Aurani.
Oh, Ronnie, yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
what does that mean to you?
well, singer, like being a singer myself, it kind of it rings a bell with me. But I suppose singing can be a way of people expressing themselves, like expressing their, you know, if they're writing songs or they're singing covers, it can be an expression of what they like to do, something they like to do, whether it be singing other people's songs like covers or writing. It's kind of like something they do, like it's using their talents to write songs and use their voice, for
Sure.
irony. Yeah, yeah,
I suppose they're bringing a message to
yeah.
people, aren't they?
Creativity, like, is
Just
really,
like we are.
yeah, definitely, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Creativity, like, yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah. To
yeah,
me, of course, it means something completely different
yeah.
because, of course, I went to Sing Street, and the nickname for Sing Street was
Very
Singer.
good. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
only we ever called it Auroni.
Oh,
But yeah, so the nickname was Singer. And so when I hear the word singer, that's what I think of, you know.
oh, cool. Because we were only talking about that last night. We got to meet up there last night, and we were talking about that film they made about it, which is
Oh,
really
that's
good.
right. Yeah, about Sing Street. Called
Yeah,
Sing Street.
yeah,
Yeah, but spelled slightly differently. But anyway, yeah, good movie.
yeah. Very
Bit of
good. Yeah.
crack. And of course, then there's always a Singer Sewing Machine, if you remember them.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, I think every house had one of them at one stage, you know.
And make sure everybody's singing out the same tune as well.
Yeah, very good, very good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So yeah, lots to bring in there, you know.
yeah, yeah. No, cheers for that. So there's two words for you guys, Arani and Lock.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Singer and Lake.
cool. Thanks for that, Fintan. Good stuff.
No worries, thank you.
Yeah, so we'll get to the content of today anyway. Like we were talking about, like, so there's four things when you're dealing with weight management that we deal with. I was just dealing with a client there recently, and she seemed to get a lot out of it. It's like, so we'll explain a little bit about what way we deal with this. So the first thing is metabolic rate. Like, this is in no particular order, like, as we discuss now in a few minutes, but that's one of the first things. One of the things you deal with is the metabolic rate, and there's various ways that, like, we'll explain in the podcast, of ways of dealing with that.
Yeah. Then there's also people's beliefs. Now they may or may not be true, you know. There's confirmation bias. So what we try and do then is knock down limiting beliefs, build up empowering beliefs, and that sort of thing, you know. And we'll explain some of the methods we use to help do that as we go as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. Beliefs is a major thing, like, it's so, like, we'll touch on that definitely, like you say, Fintan.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the third thing, like, as I say, there's no particular order you deal with this, so you get this from the interview with talking to the person. But the next thing that can be an issue with weight management is food cravings, where most of us crave foods that are not particularly great for us. We'll mention that, not particularly good for us. So there's a food craving thing where we deal with that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, another thing along the similar lines, not quite the same. You were mentioning there to me a while back, a friend of yours had mentioned, and it was something I'd come across myself, was other people's food and forcing food on people,
Hmm.
um, because it's their specialty, their special meal that they make, or their special cake that they make, and they go
Yeah,
to a lot of effort to do it, and it's their way of like feeling acknowledged and that sort of thing. So we can talk about that as well.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
Right.
And then there's the food. Then there's the self-esteem, which is it's building the ego strength, isn't it?
It is, yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, we'll go into what exactly self-esteem is in terms of um, the both aspects of it. A lot of people think self-esteem is just self-worth, you know, it's like standing in front of the mirror and say, I'm a wonderful person. And obviously that is part of it, but it's only half it. So we'll go into all of that then as we go through the podcast as well.
Great, Fintan. That's great, brilliant. So, what you really start off with, really, to get the river flowing, like, referring to our words there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very good, very good.
So,
Um,
go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, I suppose we could start off with, you know, how we approach the whole thing when we get a client for the
Yeah,
first time, you know.
yeah,
So, you know, the interview and well-formed outcome, that sort of thing.
mm. Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yes, because yeah, that's the first thing you do is when the person comes into your office or the person comes to see us, is you do a tour interview with the person to find out. Because a lot of people when they they want to talk about their issue, their problems, and you gotta let them give them the space to do that, not to let them go on too long, but just to get a basic understanding of what the issue is.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. And look, that's what the well-formed outcome or the interview is all about.
Yeah.
What you're trying to do is establish, things like what the intention is behind the behavior. Because we've said before on this podcast that every behavior has a positive intention.
Hmm.
However, it may not have that result or give that result. But we do have that positive intention. So we need to find out, well, what is the intention behind the behavior? What is it that the person is trying to do or thinks that they're doing that is causing this behavior? And then how can we deal with it? Once you have that established, it's easier to deal with it.
Yeah. Definitely, yeah, yeah, big time. Because then you're going to be asking things like, you're going to get a basic understanding of what their major thing is by
Yeah,
talking to them. So it's really about listening to the person you're dealing with and helping. Like they'll tell you what the main thing is that is causing their problem with their weight management.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, for sure. Like for example, a lot of the time, people we mentioned there other people's food. So, for example, everybody grows up eating their mother's food, or that's within the family food.
Yeah, yeah.
And the thing about it is that often, I mean, how many times did you hear when you were a kid growing up about, you know, uh, kids in Africa going hungry, and if you don't eat your food, and it's like, how does me eating my food make them not hungry, But I think the point she was trying to make was obviously to guilt trip you into eating all your food. And of
Yeah.
course, that comes from a very good place.
Hmm.
After all, there was a time when food wasn't as readily available. And if you didn't eat all your food, then you had a situation where children grew up malnourished, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah.
So, and there were lots and lots of children grew up malnourished. And not that long ago, like a couple of generations ago, that would have been quite common.
Mm.
So the idea of leaving food on the plate was like, oh my God, it was sacrilege,
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, that was in the days before when food was like, there was no such thing as organic food. It was just called food, you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Real
like
quickly.
there was no organic fruit and veg. It was just fruit and veg,
Mm.
everything was done organically back then. There was an awful lot less, what's the word I'm looking for? Convenience foods,
Mm.
let's say, and if there were convenience foods, they were like exorbitantly expensive, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah.
Whereas now, if you go into the shop, you can actually buy those foods much more cheaply than you can sometimes fresh fruit or fresh food and food that you have to cook yourself,
Yeah, yeah. Oh no, yeah. Like it's because definitely, like you say there, the beliefs we had about food may not have been a great belief. Like where like when I was growing up, there was fry bread and there was all
Yeah,
this stuff that
yeah, 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 it's
that,
true. Yeah, yeah.
you thought it was a natural. You didn't know about the health risks of that. Like you were just given your sausages and your pudding and your fry bread and all that kind of stuff. So,
That's
but
right. Yeah,
that was a
people use
belief, and then
lard.
you get new beliefs then as you get older because you know that stuff isn't particularly good for you.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, the thing is that at that stage, people were just taking in whatever nutrients they could, whatever calories they could.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, then you had the situation there where in America, people were becoming obese because, of course, they had more access to the convenience foods, and
Yeah.
so what was happening with them was that there was an obesity epidemic coming about.
Mm.
But of course, the sugar companies all did lots and lots of scientific research and came up with the idea that actually, oh, it wasn't sugar that was the problem, it was fat, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they started to produce all that sort of stuff. But anyway, I suppose that's kind of probably digressing slightly from what we're talking here, which is the intention behind the behavior. So obviously, the idea of eating everything on your plate came from a good place, a
Yeah.
place where people had previously been malnourished. Then suddenly you have a situation where people have as much as they need and lots more. So the idea of eating all on your plate or filling your plate to the brim and eating everything you can no longer serves a useful purpose.
Definitely, yeah. And then as well as that, like when you're doing the interview, the initial interview, you're touching on the family history as well. Like
Sure.
you're asking, does it run in your family? So like that's not being inquisitive of don't want to know whether their parents or whatever. You don't really, you just want to see what their beliefs are, to kind of, and then what you're doing is while you're talking, you're just jotting down a few buzzwords or words to get back to feed back to them later on when you're
Yeah, yeah.
when you're working with them.
Yeah, sure. You make a
Yeah,
few notes on, so that when you're talking back to the person, then you're talking about the same things that they were talking about,
yeah, yeah,
rather than just going off on your own tangent and
yeah.
missing out on things that are important to them,
Mm.
that are affecting them.
Exactly, because there's nothing as strong as using their language back to them. Like I found that working with the person there recently, by using their language, what they say, and like not writing like an essay, because you
Yeah,
need to be looking at them while you're
sure.
calibrating. You have to be calibrating them as you're helping them. So that was
Absolutely, yeah.
briefly. That's
And you find that that's useful in everyday life as well. If
definitely, yeah.
one person says to you, "Oh, I'll see you tomorrow," and you say, "Oh, I'll chat to you then,"
Hmm.
or they say, "Chat to you tomorrow," you go, "Oh yeah, see you then."
Yeah,
Whereas I found that it's more useful if someone says, "Oh, I'll see you tomorrow," you say, "Yeah, see you then." And if they
yeah,
say, "Chat to you tomorrow," say, "Chat to you then."
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, so it is very useful because everyone, of course, has their um, different modalities. Some people are more visual, some people are more audio, some people are more kinesthetic, so they just
yeah,
focus more on feelings or vision or um, listening, and then of course you have smell and taste as well.
yeah,
So they can be very important to some people as well.
yeah, definitely. And as well as that, when you're dealing with them, it's important to kind of see what activity or sport they like to do, because
Yeah.
it's if it's very hard to kind of keep your weight managed if you're not doing any exercise, physical activity. So what I suggest people to do, like that's what I do, is to talk to their family doctor and see what they can do, physically, sports, or it kind of helps whatever they enjoy is the best sport for them to do.
Absolutely. And when you think about it, when you go back to the four areas that we were talking about tackling, the
Yeah.
very first one, of course, metabolic rate, your metabolism,
Mm.
how fast you burn calories, compared with how fast you take them in.
Yeah.
And you'll find that some people have a higher metabolism because it can be there for any number of reasons. Often it's related to the amount of muscle you have in your body compared with fat, because muscle burns calories at a higher rate.
Hmm.
It can also be to do obviously your activity, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's been a lot of studies around activity and what people do. And if you notice that, if for example someone goes to the gym or plays football, something like that, that maybe they might spend an hour a week playing football, and they might spend an hour a week at the gym, and
Yeah.
they're all great. Don't get me wrong, they're great for building muscle. They're great for and therefore protecting your body from injuries, and that, as well as increasing your metabolic rate. Football is great for your conditioning. Um, However, there's a thing called NEAT, right? And what that basically is It's the energy that you use in your everyday life. Okay, so for example, if you're a person who gets up in the morning, hops in the car, drives to work, sits in the office, sits at the computer all day, eats his lunch at the desk, hops back in the car, goes home, watches telly for the evening, how much additional um, energy have they used compared with, say, for example, the person who gets up, cycles to work or walks to work, maybe has a more active work. For example, someone works in a restaurant or cafe, and they're up and down the whole time, up to the customers, back to the kitchen, bringing the stuff in and out. So they're on their feet all day. Then maybe they cycle home in the evening and they do something. Now, to be honest with you, I wouldn't blame them if they sat and watched telly after been on their feet all day. But the fact is that they're using, but you also have people who do then go and they might be, as you mentioned there earlier, doing something they really, really enjoy. Could be running, could be playing football, hurling, whatever it might happen to be. And then they're using obviously an awful lot more calories that way as well.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely, definitely, yeah, yeah. And by talking to people in the initial interview, you're gonna find out which one that you think and they're coming out with is the most important to them. Like by what we mentioned earlier on, it could be metabolic rate, like you're touching on there, Fintan,
Yeah,
or so then or then the beliefs. So you get to know by talking to them, as I said, which one is most important for them.
very true. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And don't forget when you're covering beliefs as well.
Mm.
Beliefs, just because you believe something doesn't make it true.
Yeah.
You know,
Hmm.
and lots of people believe things that definitely aren't true because a lot of stuff in the media, like for example, marketing, right? People want you to buy stuff, so they tell you this is healthy, and they tell you, and then you're looking at it and you're going, well, actually, is it really? Like for example, uh, fruit juice. Lots of people drink fruit juice. Why? Because it's good for you, you know. And why is it good for you? Because the people who market, say, for example, orange juice, right, say, oh, it's full of vitamin C, you know. But what it really is yes, it does have vitamin C in it, and it has the vitamin C of 5 oranges or wherever it might happen to be. However, it also has the sugar of 5 oranges. It also, what else is that if you eat an orange, when you're taking in the fiber, like the fruit itself,
Mm.
what's happening there is it takes longer for the sugar to get into your body, into your bloodstream. Whereas when you're drinking it, it just goes straight in, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the more quickly it gets into your bloodstream, then what happens is you have a spike, a sugar spike. Then what happens is you have a crash, you know? And
Mm.
also when you have too much sugar coming in, your insulin, what happens is the insulin has to take that sugar, put it into the cells, right?
Mhm.
But if there's too much sugar coming in, it starts to ignore sugar, you know?
Yeah.
And then what happens is people become insulin resistant, you
Hmm.
know, and
Yeah.
that can lead to diabetes. So that's where a lot of it comes from. It's from eating high sugar foods.
Yeah.
And of course, that then can cause food cravings, you know.
Yeah.
When you're used to that sugar kick, then what happens is, and of course, obviously, what are the two things that people love the most? Sugar and fat,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And of course, there's a very good reason for that,
Yeah.
because back in the old days, when I was young, and the dinosaurs were roaming the earth, and, and humans were
Singing a different
hunter
tune,
gatherers. Yeah, sorry.
singing a different tune, getting that word in there, you know.
Ah, very good, very good.
We got them in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, when people were hunter gatherers, right, what was happening was they were scraping, they were living off roots, and they were living off bits and pieces, whatever they could find. So
Mhm.
if they found something, an animal that had lots of fat, sure, they were laughing, you know. If
Yeah.
they found honey, like if you ever look at indigenous populations around the world, and the lengths they go to get honey from wild bees,
Mm.
uh, and they've had to be fairly ingenious, using smoke and stuff like that. But people have been prepared to take that risk simply because they know the value of those calories, because they don't have enough calories in their diet every day. So suddenly you get this, and this is like, it's like Christmas. In
Mm.
fact, I know in some places where people were basically subsistence farmers, there come a time of year, I think it's April, when the sap rises in the trees. And what they would do is they tap into it. And some trees were particularly good for tapping into. And what they would do is the sap, of course, was just more or less pure sugar. So
Mm.
they would have these like sugar parties. And the thing was that that was a time of abundance for them, but it
Mm.
wasn't an everyday thing for them. They hadn't access to sugar every day. They hadn't access to
Yeah.
that sort of, and not at the levels that we have access to it.
Mhm.
So it was a great thing for them, and you can understand why people do crave fatty and sugary foods.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Thanks for that, because I didn't know the history of that. So that's really good, Fintan. Thanks for that.
No bother at all.
It's very very informative for the listeners as well. So that's absolutely great. Yeah, yeah. It's like foods that I personally crave would be like, you know, sometimes I like to have a bag of chips and in the chipper or a burger sometimes,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
uh, and then like what you could do is like a lot of people, some people have the chocolate, love chocolate, some people love crisps and all that kind of stuff. But then there's a way is that you can use something that's known well in NLP called submodality shifts,
Yeah.
where um where you kind of think of something that you like a bar of chocolate, let's say, and then you see where it is, and you can kind of just say it's fairly close. Then you can put something that you don't like at all. It could be anything, worms or snakes or anything like that, over there, and then you can move the snakes in with the chocolate or the worms, and that will put you off chocolate or whatever you crave very fast.
Yeah, true enough. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can do that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, do the old swish pattern.
Yeah, yeah,
That
exactly.
sort of thing. Yeah, yeah. It's a good idea. Yeah. And I mean, after all, yeah, worms and chocolate have similar color, that
Yeah.
kind of brown, mucky color. So if it's a thing that you want to give up chocolate,
Mm.
um, that would be one way to put you off. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's a good idea that.
Because I
Uh,
heard before, I think it was
yeah.
a podcast. I think it was Mike Mandel was saying that years ago when they were growing up, they had all they had was cod in the fish was really popular was cod, and that's all they ate most of the time was cod. And
Yeah.
then somebody said to him one day, "That's a very very wormy fish, like slow." Put him off cod for forever. Very slow. So it didn't take much to
Yeah.
shift his perception of the food, that he didn't want to eat as much anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's fair enough. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Personally, it wouldn't put me off fish.
No.
I love fish. I love a bit of cod.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, I can understand why that might work. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So what other things were we going to talk about? Like, so there's the
Oh yeah,
food
we
type of
mentioned briefly people's beliefs,
yeah.
and we were saying about whether they're true or not.
Hmm.
I just maybe to delve a little bit more into that, if that's all right. I was thinking, for example, one of the biggest things that people have is confirmation bias,
Mm.
right? So if you believe that something is true, right, whether it's around food or anything else in life, then everything that you see and do and hear and all of that will confirm that for you, right? For example, a big issue at the moment on social media is this whole thing where what happens is you like something and Facebook says, oh, you like this sort of stuff. So we give you more of this sort of stuff. And then
Hmm.
what happens is that's just confirming what you already knew. It's not giving you an alternative viewpoint. It's not giving you anything else. So all you're getting is what you like, and it's just confirming what you want. And the same with relationships, for example. People think, oh God, look at your man, look at him. He's such a lazy kid. He always leaves stuff around the place. He never tidies up after that, whatever it happens to be, you know.
Yeah.
And then all you're doing is looking for opportunities to confirm that that is actually true, you know.
Mm.
And rather than the opposite, rather than sort of going, well, are there times when you only notice then the times when stuff is left lying around? You don't notice the times when stuff isn't left lying around. So
Mm.
the same appears with food, right? So, for example, maybe some of the beliefs that people have. I mentioned there about healthy foods in terms of uh, orange juice, for example, right? Whereas in fact, it's just actually another sweet drink, slightly healthier than ones with added sugar or whatever it might be. But nevertheless, it's not a healthy food at all, you know.
Mm.
Whereas fruit with the flesh, in other words, a whole apple rather than apple juice, a whole orange instead of an orange juice, and in limited quantities will actually be much better for you. And in fact, they are good for you because they do have, well, among other things, they have vitamins and minerals and that sort of thing in them, you know. So one of the things that we try to do then is people also have limiting beliefs. It's like, oh, I could never go without chocolate, for example. I could never go without pizza. Like, oh, I always have pizza on a Friday night, you know, this sort of thing, you know, and there's no way I could go without pizza on a Friday night. Sure, I remember when I was younger and when I started working first, and sure, I had money and nothing to spend it on. So I spent it on, you know, drink and cigarettes, you know,
Yeah.
and that was it. So I'd say to myself, oh, do you know what? I'll go into the pub, and if there's no one there, I'll go home. You know, sure. I'd always go into the pub where I knew there was people in on that particular night. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and and that and like you go, oh, I couldn't imagine a Thursday night without going to the pub. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but then when things change, suddenly you're never in the pub on a Thursday night, and guess what? The world didn't stop. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
but it's very hard to see an alternative view. So I suppose part of what we do is knock down those beliefs, you know.
Mm.
And people also say, "Oh, I could never do that," you know. They limit themselves in their beliefs, and that's another thing that we can show them. Well, actually, hang on a second here. Didn't you do this other thing? And they go, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, well, there's a similarity there, you know. Did you think you could do it? Did you believe you could do it? And they go, well, I didn't realize until I had it done, you know, stuff like that, you know.
You're mapping it across. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, 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 yeah. So just to show people where they actually are able to do things, you know, build up empowering beliefs,
Yeah.
that sort of thing, you know.
No, it's very, very useful because, as you said, there's so many people with negative beliefs. Like, I'll never be able to lose weight. I'll never be able to do that. Like, and then
Yeah,
when you get rid of them and then build beliefs that are stronger and support them. Like
yeah,
like like saying stuff like how does that belief serve you?
absolutely, absolutely. In fact, when I actually was giving up smoking, I went to a hypnotist, and one of the questions he asked me was to think about when I started smoking. It's like I was 12 when I started smoking, you know.
Yeah.
So what was the reason I started smoking? He didn't ask me to tell him. But obviously, the reason was because he wanted to be part of a group, you know, that sort of thing. He wanted to belong, he wanted to fit in. And in fairness, it did serve that purpose for the whole time I was in school. You
Yeah.
had different groups, you know, some people liked heavy metal music, some people uh, played sport. And at that time, I wasn't playing sport. I had favored smoking instead, you know. So there was
Yeah.
other people who just hung around and smoked, you know,
Hmm.
and your daily thing was all about smoking. It was about getting cigarettes. It was about where how are you going to get them, chipping in with other people to buy a packet of cigarettes, all that sort of stuff, you know. So that was kind of it. And then he said to me, "Well, does that still apply now?" You know. And at the time, of course, I go, "Well, no, it doesn't." You know.
Yeah.
And it was very easy for me to then just drop it, and that
Definitely.
was it. You know.
yeah. So it just shows the power of your mind, really, that can
Oh,
flip.
absolutely, yeah. But you're up to that. I honestly believe that I was never going to be able to give up smoking.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I've never looked back.
Mhm.
It doesn't bother me at all now. I could stand and everyone could be smoking around me,
Yeah,
and I wouldn't even be tempted at all to have a cigarette. It just means nothing to me, you know. And
yeah.
that's how I walked out that day from the hypnotist's office, you know.
Yeah, that's right, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's great, yeah. Like, because I suppose another thing we deal with as well, um, when we're helping people, would be metabolic rate.
Mhm.
So we're just gonna touch on it basically what things do we be looking out for? Like if people are saying that, I'm always cold or I never have any go and go. So that would be a highlight to us that it is a big issue for the metabolic rate, their metabolism.
Yeah, the metabolism could well be running slow. That's very true, yeah. And like that you were saying there earlier about sometimes they'll say to you things like that they like to do, but maybe they don't do as often as they might. For example, it could be going walking or it could be playing a sport, something that they used to do, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
And that, of course, all of that will help increase their metabolism, their metabolic rate. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely.
for
And
sure.
then as well as that, there's like self-esteem that people have as well, like low self-esteem,
Yeah,
where there's certain things that will just give you a little. I'll give you a little thing that I would suggest people to give a go, like that I found personally that helped me, and they're so simple. It's called graphology, and basically the way it works is if you do your letter T, a lot of people when they're doing letter T, the line of the T is very low.
yeah,
So by just bringing that T line up higher than all the other letters, and just if you're journaling, or if you're doing that, and that can really boost your self esteem. It's incredible the way it works. And then another thing is the G's. If you're doing your G or a Y,
yeah.
always bring the G back up to the line, and
Right.
make it big, the same as
Okay.
your Y. And these things, funny enough, really can build your self esteem. Like that's one takeaway for you guys,
Oh, very good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I must have a look at that myself now
And then there's one
and to
last one there,
see.
like for
Yeah.
underlining your signature, not to cross out your signature, but every time you do your signature, left to right, line underneath it. All this stuff is great
Yeah.
for building it. It's graphology. It's very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. That's the science of handwriting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks for that.
Well,
Of course, another thing that we use for helping people install empowering beliefs is tapping.
yeah.
Well, we use tapping for two reasons, and we've talked about it here before. We've done it on. We did a podcast on it actually, as far as I can
Right.
remember.
Yeah.
Um, and the first one is a 6 point tapping, which helps to relieve anxiety, to relieve ill feeling around things, relieve pain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've used them myself very successfully in pain management. And actually, I had a friend who had a sore foot, and I showed him how to do it, and he went home anyway, and he was doing it, and he said he did it for 40 minutes before he went to sleep, and the best sleep he ever had. I says, "Oh, that's great. Did the pain go away?" He says, "No, but all my anxiety went away."
Right.
And then after a couple of days, then the pain went as well, but the pain had reduced. But he had noticed the thing he noticed was his anxiety went, you know, and that's brilliant when you hear something like that, that can happen, Um, so that's the first 6 point happen, and I suppose we can run through it very quickly if you like.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Like,
So start with the crown of the head.
yeah.
So just tap the crown of the head, yeah, maybe about 10 times, right? And then the forehead, or your third eye, about 10 times. And then the side of the eyes, you can do one or two, whichever suits you. And you can do left or right, it makes no difference. Then under the eyes, just on the cheekbones. So you want to be hitting the bone on both of those occasions. Then the collarbone, just below the collarbone, tap there. And then the wrists. So you can either tap your wrists or grab your wrists, whatever suits, whatever you feel like yourself. All right. Either which, basically what you're doing is you're tapping into the acupressure points. And I'll tell you what I find that very useful for is, apart from pain, is if I'm doing stretching, for example, in yoga, or if I'm in the gym and I'm doing weights, then what it does is it helps me to last longer or to carry or lift a heavier weight, that sort of thing. So what usefulness would that have in terms of food cravings? Well, if you're having a food craving and you do a bit of tapping, then what that can do is it can take away that craving. So if you just say, for example, oh, I want a bar of chocolate, and then you just tap away at it, you go, bar of chocolate, I want a bar of chocolate. And then what it'll do is it'll take that craving away from you. The other thing as well is that, and what I do, right, because obviously it's very hard to be tapping while you're lifting weights or tapping while you're doing other things. I visualize myself tapping.
Yeah.
So now what I do is I say to myself, okay, I know what it feels like to tap the top of my head, the crown of the head. So I just do it now. I remember what it's like to feels like. And then what does it feel like to tap my forehead, side of the eyes, the cheekbones, the collarbones, and the wrists. And that has the very same effect as actually tapping. So what you're doing is you're literally tapping into your central nervous system, and you're really, really taking down all of those things, whether it's anxiety, pain, cravings, any of those things, and you're helping yourself to improve all the time. So that's the way of taking stuff away. There's another one there, Mark, that you have, which helps to empower you.
Yeah. Well, that's the just between the finger and the ring finger, probably of your left hand. And
Yeah,
when you're tapping there,
and the little finger.
yeah.
Yeah,
So if you're tapping just in there, there's
the
a
little
little gap.
ridge, is it?
Yeah, you'll get a gap just there. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
you feel the gap. And like when you're just say, for instance, if you've got rid of a lot of negative beliefs, let's say, like if you write down a couple of beliefs and you want to, instead of them beliefs, what beliefs you want in your place, like, and then when you say like everything's going to be great, I'm going to feel real healthy, I'm going to feel really fit, everything's going to go great, just an example. And then at the end of it, then you use your awesome anchor. It could be anything you use, and then go awesome, and that can reinforce your positive beliefs, or like
yeah,
food you want to what you want to eat, rather than the bad food that you but the foods that aren't great for you.
yeah, yeah.
We were talking about earlier on.
Well, I suppose a lot of those foods we eat them because we're looking for comfort.
Yeah, yeah,
So we might have had a bad day, somebody was giving out, whatever it is, and you're just feeling not great.
yeah,
So instead of going, oh well, now, God, I feel miserable. I'll go, what'll I do? Oh, I'll have some comfort food. I'll have that ice cream that's in the freezer and it's got my name on it. It's my
yeah,
name, Dan or Jerry or whatever. But the thing is that what you can do is if you do the tapping,
mm,
right? What that does is it gets rid of those bad feelings,
yeah.
and then you empower yourself,
Mm,
and then you don't need ice cream
it's great.
to make yourself feel better. You don't need comfort food. You can just feel better yourself already, and then just go, okay, now what do I want to do? I'm in my own time now. Let's go for a walk. It's a lovely evening. Let's do that,
Yeah,
whatever the
well,
case
that's
might
great.
be.
Great, Fintan. That's brilliant. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. God, I can't believe how fast the time is flying.
I know it goes quick.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
does
Yeah,
indeed. Is
but
there anything else you want to cover before we
yeah,
wrap it up?
one thing I would add to what you're saying there about the tapping, which is there is various breathing techniques you can use as well to
Yeah,
accompany the tapping. Just the box breathing. There's 7-11 breathing, and one that I just came across there in a book that I start reading called Reframe Your Brain, which is would definitely recommend that book. I've only started reading it. It's one you should check out, Fintan.
Right. Yeah.
But what he says is what you do is you can add this onto your tapping, where you're taking 2 fast breaths into your nose
Oh, yes.
and out through your mouth, and this can really has a real calming effect. I've been doing it there lately, and it's really good, really real positive. I definitely recommend people to check that out.
Yeah. Excellent. So
Yeah,
you're tapping into your parasympathetic nervous system, isn't that right?
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So the
Yeah,
sympathetic nervous system is the fight, flight, or freeze,
hmm,
and the parasympathetic is the relaxed one, where you feel relaxed and at ease. Isn't that right?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, no, yeah, spot on. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, that's excellent. Yeah, it's a great idea.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, a couple of good ideas there in terms of breathing, tapping, that sort of thing.
Mm. Like,
Excellent.
because John
Thanks very
Grinder
much,
says,
Pat.
breathe. I don't know, like John Grinder, like the co-founder of NLP, like he said, breathing can change your state. It's a great way of changing your state.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, yeah. They say if you breathe in for shorter, if you breathe out for longer than you were breathing in, then
Mm.
what happens is you start to activate the parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
Whereas if you breathe out for longer than you were breathing in,
Mm.
then you activate the sympathetic. So therefore you start feeling more tense, more whatever. Yeah. So yeah, breathing out for longer is better. And that's very interesting. So the 2 breaths in and then the long breath out. Is that it?
Out through your mouth. Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, like I'll tell you a quick story from the book. It's the
Yeah.
introduction. He says like he used to bring his dog for a walk,
Yeah.
and his name was Snickers, but he was nearly going to change his name to Sniffers because all he wanted to do when he was out for a walk was sniff the trees
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
and like he was kind of getting fed up with this. Like, God, I never get to go out for a walk in the morning. Like all the dog does is go to the park and spends most of the morning sniffing.
Yeah.
But but then he reframed it. He said like, oh no, maybe I'm being thinking of this wrong. The dog enjoys this, the dog goes to the park, he enjoys doing this, and while he's doing that, I can take my time and work on my breathing. This breathing technique he was explaining in the book,
Yeah.
working on his posture. So by reframing it and bringing his dog for a sniff instead of a walk,
Yeah.
I thought it was very
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
You
you
get
get
the opportunity.
you get the gist of reframing it. Like he's spending
Yeah.
that time and he's working on his breathing and his posture. Like it's a very very good reframe.
Yeah. Very good. Excellent. Excellent. Cool.
But listen, thanks very much, Fintan. And as we said earlier on, like we'd be happy to work with anybody if you want to email us. If you're looking to work on weight management, we'd be happy to help anybody who wants to contact us.
Absolutely. Yeah. NLP upskill your life at hotmail.com.
Yeah, definitely.
And I suppose, look, the thing about it is that the information we've given you here tonight and the techniques that we've used and that sort of stuff, obviously you can use them yourself. But I suppose for the best results, to work with a professional NLP practitioner or hypnotist is probably the best thing for you. But like I said, you try all of those things yourself
Mm.
and help yourself to reframe
Yeah.
how you tackle or how you deal with your own weight management at the moment.
And we'd be very interested to know how you're finding these podcasts and how this particular one has helped you in whatever whatever weight management you're trying to achieve. Like, we wish you all the best, and definitely contact us if you need any more questions answered. We'll be happy to help.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff, Mark.
Right.
Right.
And
So will I do the old scale and lay?
yeah, please, Fintan, that'd be great. Thanks. Yeah.
Right, okay. So a short while back, I met a friend of mine and he's hadn't seen him in years, to be honest with you. And I happened to bump into him by coincidence in a petrol station nearby, and like he's from Roscommon and I live in Longford, so this petrol station happened to be halfway between the two, you know. So anyway, and it was funny because I hadn't seen him in so long that it was kind of like he had to look a second time before he recognized me, and I didn't even realize it was him until he said hello, you know. So anyway, this guy he's a fuel merchant, so he was delivering fuel, to the garage to sell briquettes, coal, and stuff like that, you know. So he was saying to me that a friend of his, had gotten a brand new stove, and this was a brilliant stove, it was top of the range stove, paid a lot of money for it, and he was delighted with it. It was like putting out the heat so efficiently. It was absolutely brilliant, you know. And but then after a while, he started to notice that it wasn't putting out the heat anymore, you know. So as the winter progressed, so by the time anyway came around to get the stove cleaned out, right? The guy who came to clean out the stove had a look at it, and it was all clogged up. It was all like soot in the pipe, in the stove pipe, the whole lot, even the whole inside of the stove. It was all completely clogged up. So it took him ages to clean it out, and he did it. And your man says to him, "What's the story?" He says, "Well, the problem was the fuel he was burning. What was happening was that at the start he was putting in fuel, long-lasting fuel, you know, fuel that burned slowly throughout the evening. Then what happened was he got into burning much faster burning fuel. So the fuel he was putting in was burning really fast, but it was leaving this residue on the inside of the stove and in the pipes. And he kept continually feeding that in instead of the long lasting, slow burning fuel. And what happened then was he ended up having the thing clogged. So anyway, the following winter he was there and he was much better with what he was putting in it. And he was putting in the slow burning fuel, occasionally putting in the fast burning fuel because it was so little of it, it wasn't clogging up the system. So the following year when he came to clean it out, it was fine. It took just a normal job. And so I just thought that was very interesting. So anyone who's got a new stove out there for the winter, be careful what fuel you're putting in it.
That's right.
That's right.
Great stuff, Fintan. I love that. That's really, really cool. Thanks very much.
Yeah, no bother.
Let that sink in, everybody.
Yeah. So you got the Keston lay.
Yeah. Well, I haven't really heard anything as such, but I suppose by listening to this podcast tonight, all about weight management, what one thing that you've heard tonight will you put into practice now to make tomorrow and the rest of this year and next year a health and fitness year? So what one thing from this podcast tonight that stands out can help you for the rest of this year and next year and for the rest of your life?
Excellent. Thanks very much, Mark.
Thanks, Fintan. But so this has been great, been doing the podcast again, NLP Upscaler Life, myself, Mark, and Fintan, and all around management tonight. I nearly said waste management. I used to work.
Yeah.
I used to work in it.
That reminds me, the bins go out in the morning.
I'll edit that bit out, but there you go. But well, as I said, it's great doing the podcast again, Fintan. Would you?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm delighted now, to be honest. It's good to be back in the horse, so to speak. You know, back in the saddle.
Yeah, singing out the same hymn sheet.
Yeah, and not feeling quite as lakes as we were before. Oh no,
we got the two of them in. Okay, so thanks a lot, everybody, for joining us in the podcast today. And again, we'd love to hear your feedback of how you're enjoying the podcast, and I'd love you if you subscribe to our channel as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, so till next time, take care of yourselves. Thanks, Fintan.
Thanks very much, Mark.
Cheers. Slán go fóill.
Slán